No, I didn't do my intro. Anyway, I think we're live.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor Mike.
Yeah, that was
say
just
in stream.
I threw Mike off his game today. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you did. God, it was
did.
all your fault, James. Your fault yesterday too. The whole thing, the whole fucking
It is,
thing.
definitely.
Yeah. So we're reviewing a video, or kind of, sort of called.
Definitely.
Oh no! So we're reviewing. I'm sorry. Okay, we got our shit together now, guys.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. So,
Hello, Icarus. How are you today?
Icarus.
I
was worried that nobody would show up.
You know, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Icarus, Icarus.
I pronounce it Icarus because it reminds me of the myth.
Well, that's what it's based on, I'm sure. I just don't know how.
Yeah. And that's how
Icarus.
I learned it.
I corrected that. So Scott sits on the right-hand side of God. We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And James, you're a little bit below, so you would be the substance because you stand below.
Mm-hmm.
You stand below.
Yeah.
So
I'm the substance. I am the shit. I'll deliver. I'm the shit, man. I'm the shit.
Yeah. So
hey, let's talk about that real quick about that that Gnostic Informant video real quick so we can get that out of the way. I just want people to know about it.
Okay, Scott, if you go ahead, Scott.
Well, apparently, in 1962, a discovery was made in Thessalonica, which is in Turkey now. Thessaloniki. That's never mind. I'm not going to talk about the New Testament. It was the oldest surviving book manuscript in Europe, and the papyrus itself dates back to 340 BC, just prior to Alexander the Great, and it's an allegory. It's an allegorization of a Greek myth of creation. And Neil Sindelak from Gnostic Informant put it to music and read it yesterday. And that was just such a cool experience to be able to read the oldest book in Europe. So I just want people to go there. We should have a link in the description by now. If not, it will be put in there. But yeah, just settle in and just ponder the ancient history there of ancient minds and ancient thoughts about creation.
So KCA, Randy, and Icarus are our loyal viewers who showed up, and that's the first thing you got to do is show up.
Right. Well, it's Sunday morning, so not a lot of our atheists are at church. So.
No, they're listening to Randolph Richardson, because he does his 3-hour megathon every other week and doing that. So we got a lot of viewers, but I'm hoping that this being part one, people will go back and refer to it. Melody Joy is here. How about that?
I believe the word you're looking for, Speed, is fortnightly.
No, not using. I'm not talking about that. No.
So, hello, Randy and Melody Joy. Great to see you.
Fortnight. If you build a fort and you stay in it overnight, that's a fortnight.
I wish I could get more Christians to come on my channel and try to convince me about God. That would be wonderful.
Oh, that would be good.
You know, most people hate it, right? These fundies look for opportunities to witness to you and try to convert you, and I'm like, JWs and Mormons never knock on my door, right? I never get those opportunities, and I'm so jealous.
I used to get JWs, but I put a no solicitors sign on my door, and that seems to have stopped it or something.
Well,
occasionally I'll get these kids trying to sell me new. Sometimes they'll try to sell me candy, but it's those electric companies. You know, I don't know. You can get the same electricity, but through different quote unquote providers. I don't understand how it works, but I have those guys come through, and they'll just say they'll come up with some excuse as to why they're not soliciting.
Right.
So, anyway, on to the topic. So, Eric Hernandez first came on my radar when he debated T-Jump, and I linked that original debate in the description. And I believe that one is called, let's see, Is There a Reason to Believe in God? And Eric Hernandez did this entire spiel. And then he mentioned a book, which I went out and purchased, which is this book right here, if you can see it. Hopefully.
It's a great song.
Yeah, and
Which song?
and what I did,
Body and Soul.
I annotated the book a little bit. Okay.
Idiot.
But
Well,
this,
my mom used to hate it when I marked on books.
yeah. Well,
Even if they
I
were
don't
my
do
own
that.
book.
I've only done that with 2 books, I think, so far, where I was so taken aback. But anyway, J.P. Moreland does. He's actually very well educated in philosophy and metaphysics, and he does a really good job of explaining a lot of stuff in metaphysics. And then he goes on. His whole purpose is human nature and the crisis of ethics, right? So what he's on about is abortion and euthanasia. People that are dying in horrible, like cancer, right? That decide to end their lives. And he's having a problem with that. So he did this whole metaphysical workup, and then he starts talking about consciousness, right? And he is so fucking off the mark. But the interesting thing is when you listen to Eric Hernandez, it's almost like you're reading this book. So
Sure.
when Eric Hernandez says something, it's the book. And then so anyway, Eric Hernandez became a thing for me right there. And he was on Rebecca's channel a couple days ago. And he did another thing, What is a Soul, with Eric Hernandez. And that's the video that we're marking up and looking at. And let's see, what else I want to say about that. Eric Hernandez, it turns out, has an associate degree from a college in Texas, probably a junior college, in social studies. And then he has a bachelor's degree in theology from a school which I cannot find any reference to anywhere, nor can anyone else. I think the people in chat were trying on Rebecca's channel, trying to nail them down on credentials. But there's nothing wrong with being an autodidact, which is what Eric Hernandez is. And it's just that he's an autodidact, and he's also an auto book adact, because he or a one book, a mono, he's a mono autodidact. So he only gets his information from this one fucking book.
A monodidact.
Monodidact. And
incredibly charitable. Go ahead.
Does anybody want to hear Frank Sinatra singing "Body and Soul"?
We'll probably get a copyright strike.
Okay. I'm gonna play that later. It sounds like a fantastic prospect, but that's the reward I'm going to give myself for having to listen to Rebecca and Eric.
Yeah. So what do we got here? Let me take a look. See if I can fucking put something on the screen besides my face. Okay.
We need to congratulate real quick. We need to congratulate Captive Desk, Dave. He hit 106 subscribers yesterday or today, maybe.
Yay.
So he feels legit, and I'm so happy for both your self-esteem and your channel, Captive Desk. I didn't realize you were looking for subscribers, or I would have already subscribed. And I did yesterday.
Long time ago. Anyway, Captain Desk did a little rant recently. That was pretty good. And we should link that and talk about it. But I'm not prepared. Anyway,
yeah, Captain Dave, when he does his most recent video, he's like the white Uncle Bobby. He just that's exactly. Oh, hello.
All right, let's jump on into this shit.
Oh, we need to go find that and put that in the description. So somebody should do that for me.
I'm on it.
Okay. let's see. So anyway, Eric Hernandez did a number of follow-up videos, and so did T Jump on that original debate. And there's just one part in here that it's 6 minutes long. Let's see. So I think he gets into it. We'll play it to see what happens. Okay.
These children are probably conscious.
Well, it depends on what consciousness is. Like, we don't actually know what consciousness is.
I do.
Sure.
No, you don't. Have you published a paper in any academic journal? Have you solved all the problems in every field of philosophy and biology and neurology? No. You can assert you do. You don't know anything.
All right, and you can assert I don't.
Right, I can.
Yeah, so that word, he said, she said, right? I know you are, but what? And to claim that we don't know what consciousness is, it's quite an extraordinary claim. What about the people who have done, work in this? And why can't I know what consciousness is? I'm a little offended.
Why can't you know what consciousness? Like, no one knows what consciousness is.
No one.
No one.
Really?
It's one of the biggest unsolved problems in all of everything about the universe. We don't know.
In all of everything about the universe, we don't know. So the one thing that we know the
if you
most.
can solve this, you.
Anyway,
Well,
so
go ahead.
this goes right to the heart of the problem. Philosophers, starting with fucking Descartes, him and his I think therefore I am, the worst thing that ever happened in philosophy was when Rene Descartes wrote that down. They think they know what consciousness is, so like everybody knows what consciousness is. So we're gonna have a word, consciousness, and we're just going to start talking about it like everybody knows what it is, and it's just a thing, and we can talk about it like it's one thing. And so everybody has, and it's called the myth of the given, that your consciousness is the given, and you don't have to defend it in any way at all.
Right. It's very much like the presuppositionalist apologetics when it comes to God.
Right.
Presuppositionalist consciousness.
Yeah. And I would kind of agree with Leo here, because I think what we know about neuroscience today, we know everything we need to know about what consciousness is. We just don't believe that that's it. We can see it. We can see it empirically. We can test it. We can play with it. We can change it. We can do a whole bunch of stuff with it. We know where it is roughly, but we don't believe it. It's like, no, that can't explain it, because consciousness is, and we know what it is, and we all have it, and it doesn't explain our intuition of our consciousness. So it's the myth of the given, basically, is that we can experience consciousness, and from that we know what it is. Now we can go blow our fucking horn about it. That is the problem. What we really know about consciousness is neuroscience, right? We know the neuroscience of consciousness. The intuition of consciousness, we don't know fucking beans. And all we have is philosophers blathering about this shit over and over again, book after book, never actually nailing down the problems with trying to observe your own consciousness using your own consciousness, which is a real fucking problem. Anyway, so that's my rant on that. Anyway, okay. There's, I think Pink Elephant start here. So
Now, the simple point I'm trying to make here is that if your mental states, like your thoughts, are literally the same thing as your brain, physical states of the brain, then whatever my mental state is, that physical object.
I might have to back up.
Not exactly. Like, they have done experiments with cats or baboons.
Okay.
Literally in the brain.
I'm back.
Something that we experience every single day of our lives. It's quite an extraordinary claim, but it gets better, because then we start talking about the pink elephant in the brain, literally in the brain. So if you close your eyes and I ask you to see a pink elephant, would you see a pink elephant?
No, I can imagine an elephant.
Right, you would imagine it. Would you say you'd have an experience of a pink elephant in your mind? See, in the sense that you have that sensation, it'd be a mental state, right?
Right. That's because your visual cortex, what it does is it mimics the sensations given to you when you see something.
That's incredible.
It mimics the sensation in the brain produced by the photons interacting with your eye.
Oh, so now the sensation's in my brain.
Yes, it's always been in your brain.
Really? So if I were, let's say, a surgeon and opening your brain, I'd see that pink elephant in there?
Oh fuck!
Not exactly.
my
Like they have done experiments with
Sorry.
cats where they baboons.
Exactly.
We don't have that level of quality in the brain. And once we do, yes, the answer is yes. We will be able to find the pink elephant in the brain. We know.
Now, the simple point I'm trying to make here is that if your mental states, like your thoughts, are literally the same thing as your brain, physical states of the brain, then whatever my mental state is, that physical object would or could be in my brain in principle. And what I thought was a simple point that I was trying to demonstrate was that when I have mental states, those physical objects are not literally in my brain. But to my surprise, he thought otherwise. It's not in there. That bad boy is in there. That pink elephant, it's boom in my brain.
Physical shapes, yes. Physical shapes are actually processed in the visual cortex. Yes, the physical shape is there.
They're not translated. They're there. Like, how big is that elephant that would be in my brain? Because I'm impressed that you think a pink elephant fit in my brain.
Okay. So T-Jump is a little bit wrong in the way he presents it. But what he's talking about is a phenomena called retinotopic or architectonic mapping in the brain. Now, if you were to take the back part of your brain, like go back where your neck is, and as you go up, there's the very back of your brain. If you put your hand on that, there's something called the primary visual cortex. And the primary visual cortex actually has a map of your field of vision on it. And it's all wrinkled, so they have to unfold it. But if they unfolded it, they could, like if you were looking at a really bright red triangle, they could actually do an image of your brain and see that triangular shape in your brain. And that's what T-Jump was talking about. And that's what Eric Hernandez doesn't know. And I don't think he knows to this day that that's actually a thing. They had some, and the other thing, when you imagine shapes, you reprint it back on that primary visual cortex. So you light those neurons back up. 90% of the neurons actually come from the front of your brain, and only 10% come from your eyes. So when you imagine things, they are able to image what you're imagining, and they were able to identify when some subject was seeing an airplane, because they could actually see the fucking shape on his brain in some manner. So T-Jump is right, and he's presenting it kind of wrong. And Eric is like trying to make fun of him because, oh, do you think a pink elephant could fit in my brain? Because pink elephants everybody knows how big pink elephants are, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. He's trying to make fun of him, but he also, I think he legitimately is interpreting it literally. He doesn't understand what T-Jump's saying.
I know. Yeah. Because he is so off on his thinking about the physicalism of the brain, because he's absolutely sure that the soul is thinking about the pink elephant. It has nothing to do with your brain. The areas of the brain light up because your soul saw it first, right? That's his dualistic thinking. And anyway, I thought I'd point that out before.
Yeah, here's a question I have now that you bring up all this neuroscience. Does what's his face Eric Hernandez? I'm sorry, I forgot his first name. Does he make any claims to having a strong knowledge of neuroscience? Or
no.
Would it not matter to him because he has philosophy?
Right. It wouldn't matter to him at all. I don't think he gives a shit, or would he ever bother to look into it.
Because I kept commenting to myself, it's almost like he lives in a world where systems chemistry doesn't seem to exist, the chemistry of dynamic systems, because he talks about when he talks about like an animated creature or human, his movements and actions and stuff and decisions are made through the soul. But
yeah,
to me, I see all that, all those memories, all all the life processes and everything as the active chemical part of our physical body, giving rise to the what's the word, emergent property of living, of having ideas, thinking of pink elephants, changing your own neurology through CBT, like he talked about before. He thinks that the soul is acting on the brain, and doesn't seem to get the idea that the brain can act upon the brain through the process of neuroplasticity.
Yeah, he's his confusion over free will, and of course everybody's is that there are multiple parts of the brain, of the mind. The mind is not a singular thing, and we have, like, we can imagine doing something, going left or right, taking a left turn or a right turn, and then another part of our brain can basically model that imagining and make a decision, right? And that decision is really interesting because there's a whole fucking complex structure that goes ahead and it does this action selection, basically. And it's in the basal ganglia. And it's a remarkable mechanism, but it actually decides on something. And they can see where this, and they know the circuit, the electrical circuit that makes these decisions. They're coming to know that. Anyway. Yeah, ask Eric to come on my channel sometime, Danny, and I'd love to have a talk with him. So
a lot of this comes down to a soul of the gaps fallacy.
Yeah, basically. Well, he's got a lot of arguments here. We can start getting into the video and looking at his arguments, and his arguments are pretty pathetic, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think, okay, you had a bookmark. So how do you want to handle this, my friend? You got our transcript?
Which friend are you talking to?
I'm talking to you, James. Talking to you.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I went through that transcript and made notes and stuff. And
yeah.
So
you got a bookmark at 2:44, and the transcript bookmarks are about 40 seconds skewed from the video bookmarks.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And I forget which way they're skewed, but they are. But anyway, I started at one. I got a bookmark at 147. Let's see.
Okay.
Here we go.
So my next semester rolls around, and I wanted to learn more about philosophy and take another class. And every one of my peers warned me that if I was going to take another class in philosophy, that I should not take Professor Pena's class, because he was an atheist, he was antagonistic, he would his goal would be to try to make me lose my faith. And my thought was, well, where can I sign up? Because not that I obviously wanted to lose my faith, but I had questions. And I've always had the conviction that if something's true, and if all truth is grounded in God, then I shouldn't be afraid to learn anything that's true. So I knew that if Christianity was true, I needed to know why. But I also knew and understood that if Christianity were false, then I'd still like to know why, and maybe this was the guy for the job. So the pivotal moment and day in my life in ministry, I'd say, is he walks in a class one day, and he pretends he reaches into his pocket to pull out this antidepressant pill, and he kind of gazes at it for a second and looks at it, and then he begins his lecture and says, basically, religion wants us to believe in something like a soul, which is supposed to be immaterial, and it's because of this soul that we can have hope in an afterlife and seeing our family and friends. That's
a little bit beyond one of your comments. I knew that Christianity was true.
Right. So he's coming from a position of extreme bias, right? He's willing to have his bias challenged, but he's looking at the challenge through the lens of his bias. So Christianity is true, all reality grounded in God, but he wants to understand how that's the case, and he wants to understand why people don't think so, and he's willing to hear the challenge, but he's not willing to let go of his bias when he considers the challenge.
Yeah. Okay. So he pulls out an antidepressant
that have gone before us. And according to Christianity, he said, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, sensations, all these things are allegedly contained within your soul and are also supposed to be allegedly immaterial. But the problem was, he said, if I took this antidepressant pill, which is kind and physical, how can it have the power to change and affect the alleged immaterial state of my soul? Because if I took this, it could change my sensations, my mood, even my behaviors. But how can that be? Because every time we look at the brain, all we see are neurons firing. And every time we look at the body under a microscope, all scientists ever find are things like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, the base chemicals. But we never find anything like a soul. So how do we explain that? And he said, well, the answer is pretty simple. The answer is that there is no soul. There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is no God. There is no afterlife. You're just a physical brain and body, a meat machine. And we need to learn to get on with our lives and stop believing in these fanciful, foolish fairy tales. And essentially, class dismissed.
Okay, now you go. You go on a real diatribe here, James.
Right, so
Or no, not yet. You have a comment. Okay.
soon coming up. I do. But my thought at this point is I don't really believe him. Like I don't think he's really capturing what that professor said to him, because a professor in a secular university setting is not going to go quite that far, like to let his class know that all the religious beliefs are bullshit. The administration for that university would be like, no, that's too far. You can't do that. Right? That's scandalous and it's divisive, and that's not what we're here for. If we present your education with that kind of a biased lens, it ironically is going to delegitimize us. Right? You just can't go that far. I don't believe he did. Like, I think that's a bullshit representation of the conversation. But
It usually is when these guys remember their interactions with that. Well,
Yeah, there's a trope in this of the innocent shucks guffaw kind of honest Christian who tried by fire, didn't have his faith shaken by the evil atheist professor, and he's trying to establish credibility with Rebecca's audience.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got to talk about the movie. There's a big movie on this, a Christian movie about the atheist professor who challenges all his students, right? And then in the end, the atheist professor gets hit by. What is God is what?
God is not dead, or it's a different one?
It might be that one. God is not.
Yeah,
dead.
yeah, Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah. Anyway, I got to have a link to that because God is not dead. We the people. Is that the one? Pureflix?
No, well, there's different versions of the same trope, but yeah, God is not dead is the one about the classroom and the professor and the kid who won't back down, who's a Christian.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that one. Anyway, okay. So I'll put a link to that. I gotta grab the link. I'll see it. I'll see it.
By the way, for you Star Trek fans out there, I was able to catch the season premiere of Star Trek Picard. Excellent first episode. I hope the rest of the season continues.
Oh, talk about season.
Awesome.
What is it? Season 3?
Season 3, yeah, episode 1.
Yeah.
So, what streaming service is that on?
Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Ooh, good. I happen to have that one. Okay. So, anyway, this is part 1, and we're just kind of getting going on this guy. And it's a whole lot of philosophy of the mind that I want to do in parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ... n. So I'd like to go a lot further with it because there's so much to talk about, when it comes to philosophy of the mind. And this guy represents what is wrong with philosophy of the mind. He represents the whole group of philosophers of the mind that are confused about the mind, and they drive me nuts. I call them philosophies.
Yeah.
Copyright, trademarked, Answers in Atheism, 2023. Okay, so shall we go on?
Now back to our roasting of some philosophies.
Yeah, so your comment was, but at the same time, he knew that atheists exist, and he knew this prof was an atheist. And you want to continue with that commentary, or?
Well, so none of this should have been surprising to him, right? Unless you live under a rock, atheists exist, and you know that if you present them the idea of soul, right, that they're going to be like, count on it now. Like, you already know that going in. Like, nothing about this should be surprising.
Yeah, and this is kind of a surprising admission coming up next, I think.
Now, that really struck me and it troubled me. I thought everyone believed in the soul, and this is for the first time hearing, not just that someone didn't believe in the soul, but hearing an argument against it.
So that was the first time he ever heard of an atheist?
Right, which is complete bullshit. Like, he's just so used to bullshit.
No, that's the first time he heard of somebody not believing in the soul.
So he thought all atheists believed in the soul?
I guess.
I don't believe him that he thought that.
No, I don't believe that either. I don't know. Admits here that he felt troubled, James' comment, about the challenges of his religious narrative. So, anyway.
Yeah, he admits to feeling troubled by
he's troubled.
But what was even more troubling was what came to mind was Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 15. And to paraphrase, Paul essentially says, if there is no resurrection of the dead, then Christianity is false. In Christianity, it's the idea of not just a bodily resurrection, but you, the self, the soul, being resurrected with a new body. And so, long story short, I figured, well, if there's no resurrection.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on the divergence from what Paul said?
Yeah, we talked about that so much on Myth Vision. This is why I tell these fundies, like, you need more Myth Vision in your life, because I mean, it's just a wonderful source of information from a wide range of scholars, and Paul is a very common topic there. And so they, they're each speaking independently, but they're all leaders in their fields. So then there's the issue of what was the resurrection, and this idea of it being both the physical and the spirit resurrection. Not really, right? And it's not. And another problem is that the gospel writers didn't agree about it anyways. So fundamentalists read these Bible books as if they're one whole and try to harmonize them, whereas in actuality they were independent people with independent ideas about the reality of religion.
We're getting
right?
some comments about James kind of breaking up, getting real staticky. I can hear it too. Is there anything we can do about that speed?
Yeah, I'll fix it right now.
Yeah, James can fix it, I think.
And he'll quit.
Before you fix it, I think. So, come on, guys.
Yeah, I've got something running in the background.
Boys and girls,
I'm going to turn it.
buy 1 gig or 100 gig in internet. It's available. Pay for it.
Yeah, I've got the gigabyte stuff, but I had something running on my computer. I turned it off. It should be better now.
Oh, okay. Now
you sound much better now.
Yeah, you're a lot better. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So, you were saying, or were you done saying?
I mean, that's enough. Like, his idea, I mean, he's just giving his modern Christian interpretation about what, right? And they always speak of it as if it's an objective fact of what Paul thought, when really there's a lot of controversy amongst Christians and among scholars about what Paul thought, because it depends on how you interpret what he was saying. How much of it's literal, how much of it's an analogy, what do the analogies represent? So it shouldn't matter anyways, right? And he's going to do this again and again and again throughout his video, his presentation, where he keeps appealing to these church figures and these philosophers who use various words and phrases to seemingly address certain concepts that they're still somewhat vague about, as if he can build upon that to prove the soul. And you can't, because it doesn't matter how well known somebody was. It doesn't matter how religious or pious they were. It doesn't matter how much they seem to endorse your religion. It doesn't matter what words they used or how they used them or what they thought was real or not real. It's just, an appeal to authority is something that doesn't belong in these discussions. An appeal to a tradition and a bandwagon fallacy and all this other bullshit, who in the hell cares, right? If he can't build his case without appealing to other figures in history who, as far as he can tell, have the same way of thinking as him, because we shouldn't give a shit, right? If he can't build his case without that, then he has no case to build. So This is the crux of my rebuttal to it.
So, Bree, I think somebody asked him that question. What the hell was that? I don't know what that was. Wow. Somebody asked him that question later on, and he dances around that. Like, what is this substance that is the soul that you're talking about? And he really dances around it, but I think that's way later in the video. So, yeah, I like what he says here. If there is no resurrection of the dead, then Christianity is false. And I want to put a message out there to all Christians who want to evangelize me, the atheist. All you fucking got to do is resurrect my mama. She died like 13, 14 years ago. And I'm a believer right there. You got me. I mean, if you want to get me, that's how you get me, right? Resurrect somebody who's been dead and buried for 10 years or so, or even 3 days. Okay, 3 days. I'm good. So next time I lose a relative, 3 days later, I want them to walk out of the funeral home, flushing the embalming fluid out of their veins, and have a talk with me. And then I'm a Christian.
And they need to be restored to their most recent driver's license picture.
Yeah, no fucking zombie, no zombie mom walking out of there trying to eat my brains. That's not good enough. She got to be mom. Yeah,
right. They're being very consistent about that too. It's a valid point to make, because I'm like, look, your guys' argument or your religion proposes the idea that the reason that this Jesus figure in your stories resurrected a couple of other people and healed other people of things that just can't heal without the magic, and the reason why he came back to the dead and wants us to know it is because he wants to physically show us that this is a real thing. But even if we grant that it happened, he's then only showing those people it's a real thing. He's not showing us, right? Us hearing rumors from people
2,000 years ago.
Yeah, rumors aren't evidence, right? This is just hearsay. So if it's within their God's will and value system to provide physical demonstrations of something he wants people to accept as true, then he needs to provide the same thing for us too. He needs to come down here and resurrect some people right in front of us, not on some video from Africa, right? Where this is preachers like, those fake bullshit videos. So if they want to say that he's just not going to do that because it's wrong to require that kind of proof, then why in the hell did he provide it to people in these stories? Right? It's also unjust, because if those people have the benefit of actually seeing these things and going, holy shit, it's real, right? And then they become a believer, then they've got a better opportunity to become a believer. They've got a more reasonable grounding in that conviction than we're offered. And so there can be any number of people here in our world today that would become a Christian or some form of believer in that idea if they themselves personally saw it, but they're not because they don't see it, right? And so what ends up happening per their religious story is that people in ancient times will get judged by different standards than we get judged by. And this is true in so many ways anyways, but I'm like, that's literally the opposite of justice, and justice is supposed to be central to your religion. It's like these people don't even understand what words mean. Sorry, end of rant.
Yeah, like I'm praying to God right now, sending him a message that's like, any politician who wants to really get his message out and get elected runs these town hall meetings all across the country. And we could have a town hall meeting, pick a dead person, bring them back to life, and you're going to have more fucking Christians than you can shake a stick at, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to do it. That's going to do it for me.
And by the way, James, you are here to rant. If it is your basically the expectation that at some point you will rant. So don't worry about the rant. That's part of the package.
No, that's why we invite you. Why the hell would we invite James Apperson if we didn't want
right? Except for the rants. There you go.
Yeah, except for the rant. Okay, so where are we? Oh, Bree is going to have. Okay, do you know anything about this, Scott? Megan Lewis from Digital Hammurabi?
Yeah, Megan Lewis. That's Josh's wife, Josh Bowen's wife. She herself is a Syriologist, all but dissertation, I believe, and they're going to go on a virtual tour.
Mud Fossil University? Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about that guy who thinks the mountains are actually dragon fossils or something like that?
I don't know. We'd have to tune in, I think,
We'll tune in.
or ask. Bree is in the
Yeah.
in the side chat. We could bring him in to talk about it.
Yeah, so Mud Fossil University is this kind of batshit crazy person who he puts out a video every day, and he's got all this like evidence that like he found like the shapes of dinosaurs in mountains and stuff like that, that the mountains are actually dinosaurs or some fucking thing like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. Back to our video. Where are we going next? We're going to review this whole thing, eh? Is that what's happening?
We'll get as far as we get, and then we'll have a part 2, I suppose, for however far we didn't get.
And a part 3, and a part 4, and a part. Okay.
Yeah, because I sometimes can't shut my mouth.
Like in that instance, right there when I started the video, and okay.
That's right. That's right. See, I just interfere.
I'm going to try again, Scott.
Would prove Christianity false. So by the same token, if there's no soul, how could there be a resurrection of me? And thus, if there's no resurrection and no soul, then
Hey, what is the video loud enough for you guys out there in chat? Somebody let me know, because I just turned it up a bit, and let me know if it's too loud.
Christianity would be false. So here's for the first time in my life that I heard an argument that, if true, would mean that my faith was in vain. As Paul says, Christianity was false. And so I didn't know what to do really with that. I could, ignore it, or I could roll up my sleeves and get into some metaphysics and learn philosophy, which is what I did. So that's kind of where it set me at today. Some years after I graduated from that community college, it was actually my first public debate on God's existence at a church I didn't even attend. And that's a whole nother long story. But sometime after that debate, I remember approaching him and I said, I don't know how you're going to take this, because I know you're an atheist, but I just want to really thank you for allowing God to use you the way he did in my life, because if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So he's really what him and the other professor really indirectly pushed me into the area of philosophy and apologetics. And I'm very grateful for that.
Okay. Do you want to read your rant?
Oh, it's quite the rant. Do you?
Yeah, go ahead. That's what we have you. Yeah.
So he went out of his way. Hold on a second. He went out of his way to go back to that and another atheist professor. And to do what? To throw it in their faces that their evil plot to make him doubt his faith didn't work. He wanted them to know that it actually backfired. How? By making him double down on his religious tribe's narrative, as a result of making it Hernandez's job to defend that tribe and its narrative. In this passive-aggressive, self-satisfying gesture, Hernandez reasserts his own personal story as a vain, and I mean that with a dual meaning, fruitless and done for ego, attempt to do the following. It was an attempt to mentally draft those professors' sense of character into Hernandez's story, which is a form of gaslighting. It was a self-satisfying ego power play. To say with a smirk, my religious story is the absolute truth. You guys are both bound to that story as the real story that defines who you are in the world. My God used you to polarize me against you, and thus permanently root my true identity into my true story, which is also your only true story. This obviously must be the case, since I, being super smart, humble, and honest, would have gone full atheist if you had made your case. It had to be one way or the other. I either had to go full anti-godist or creatard for Jesus. There were only those two options on the table for me, because I am a righteously black and white thinker. If I had those...
Whoops, I'm sorry.
Right? You played the link early.
Did.
Yeah, hold on. I'll cue it. He says, if I had lost, basically the idea is if I had lost those debates, then my ego, which was totally on the line, would have admitted defeat and then gone full anti-God. But something inside of me knew that I couldn't let that happen. The truth of righteousness was calling me. Thus, I totally did win those debates. And then go ahead and play the video. Click. Click.
You are the true Lord of the dance, no matter what those idiots at work say. You are.
That's it.
Yeah, if we got good at this, a little
Yeah.
editing. Yeah.
A
Anyway,
little editing.
that's
Well, I wanted to
that's-
actually drop the video. I'm not sure how to drop the actual video with the play button inside of Google Doc. I only know how to do the link. So
yeah.
if you
I
can show
hope
me
it's-
later how to do that, then.
Yeah, I'm trying to
That'd make
figure
it
out how
better.
to show your pictures from this transcript. So,
Oh, you
I'll
just
use
share
it.
screen, right? You just share screen.
Yeah, I could show it like in this manner, right?
If you want to. That's probably the only way you could do it, really, as far as I
Yeah.
know. And we all know the meme about arguing with Christians, right? So it's like
Yeah.
playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good I am at chess, the pigeon is just going to knock over the pieces, shit on the board, and then strut around like it's victorious. So that's what happens. So he continues with this idea, basically, is thus I have vindicated Christianity as everyone's ultimate truth. As a result, they became mentally cemented into the truth. All that was made possible because my God was able to use you both of you satanic assholes, to validate my pre-existing and ultimately righteous bias. So thanks. Thanks for being a couple of chumps, spiritual lions that the Lord threw me unto, which then revealed how you were unable to spiritually eat me. As it turned out, my pre-existing religious bias was fantastically, coincidentally correct. So there's more rant, but that's like the first part of my rant. Then I got.
Well, there's a lot
This
of
is-
good rant. Yeah, I mean, you went on and on. I was impressed. I woke up this morning and you are the first person that I had linked the transcript to that actually did the fucking work and looked at the transcript. Thank you, James. You validated my 2 year. I mean, for 2 years, I have been linking transcripts to people. Nobody's done a thing with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
First one.
so I've used Google Docs for years. No, I haven't used it recently until this, because I took a break from it and switched over to the Google's Blogger app. But yeah, I've got like years and years of material in Google
Do you
Docs.
hear, James? Do you hear how bitter Speed sounds?
I am-
Nobody using his doc. It's just like bitterness. Bitter old atheist.
Right. All you
You
other
know,
assholes, you really let me down.
Come on, read the rest of it. What the fuck? Where
Yeah.
were you? Let's say.
So what an amazing coincidence. Right now, this is supposed to be a GIF, but it doesn't play in Google Doc as a GIF, so it's just an image. But what an amazing coincidence that his pre-existing religious bias just happened to coincidentally be the exact right bias, right? So he continues with this idea. I hope this impresses, bothers, and humbles you, because then the only way to feel clean and good about cementing me into this narrative would be to adopt my religious story as true. And then you too could thank our God for using you in such a way that ultimately allowed him to use me to witness to you about how much power you don't actually have in our world. I hope you feel yucky and small about me overcoming your agenda, that this will create a sense of need within you to adopt my story as true. This way, you could turn your ego loss into an ego victory. Behold the glory of the power invested in me to resist and transform, dominate and conquer over the evil which possesses you. Don't you want to create a story where you too conquered some great evil which possessed you? I sure hope so. My ego would welcome that even greater imaginary victor over you and over evil itself. And then your ego too could start to feel great as the imagined conquerors over the same evil, as the spiritual butterflies emerging from the transformative cocoon of ego, death, and rebirth. And so concludes our battle of wills, saith the super humble soldier of the Lord. I don't remember which link that is there. There's a link, but I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I love how
yeah.
you illustrate your own snark.
Thank you. I was hoping that would come through.
Think you're really righteous? Think you're pure in heart? Well, I know I'm a million times as humble as thou art. Think you're really righteous?
So
Okay.
to continue the thought, righteousness has once again proven that evil is impotent. You stand there exposed, limp and small before the virile power of a man who has taken the blue pill for Jesus. And then images follow.
Show the blue pill. Anyway.
Difficulty achieving or maintaining a resurrection. my ego gets so hard. It comes back to life, and then I shoot it right in the face of random people's faces. Right in their faces.
Oh, here
And
we go. Oh my
he says,
God.
I can hardly wait to see it. Okay, and this is an actual thing. Like, there was this event where there was they were shooting hot dogs at the crowd. Like, what
Yeah.
could go wrong? And then someone actually got hurt. So that's that kind of
Oh,
a thing. So to continue the thought, kind of the trail off, I can hardly wait to see the vampirically satisfying looks on my fellow fundies' righteous faces as they partake in my ego's imaginary victory on behalf of what we pretend is a shared religious narrative. And then I've got a small clink for our reply.
We have a link.
Skeptical content has helped you grow closer to the Lord, then send some people our way so we can help them enrich their relationship with Jesus Christ. Skeptical
And that was actually from this morning. That was just released. I'm like, oh, great timing on that one.
Okay. Okay. So moving on with the video. Okay, I think that's where we're at.
Wow, that is such a cool story. And so how did he react when you said that?
He just kind of chuckled. He just kind of chuckled and, just kind of shrugged or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to do your presentation
You've got more pictures.
I do. So she asked what was really said, and he said, they just sort of chuckled and, kind of shrugged and whatever. In other words, they all laughed at me. So let's not talk about that. Moving right along.
Yeah, I wonder if Eric Hernandez is not reporting, the rolling of the eyeball, like, oh, here we go, another fundamentalist telling me I didn't persuade him or something.
Yeah,
I'm sure he gets that a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we can.
So let's jump into this.
Okay.
Okay, so let me pull it up. 1 second here.
And thank you for being here, Bro Guy and Zing, Melody. Good to see you.
First, the soul is an immaterial substance. We're going to use it as definition that possesses consciousness and animates the body.
Okay. Immaterial substance that possesses consciousness and animates the body. So, how the fuck?
Well, this reminds me. Was it Daniel Dennett who talked about the deepity? I think immaterial substance is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Define substance. He wants to claim Aristotle came up with the word substance, and that somehow makes it coherent or real or something like that. If you apply it to the idea of immaterials, immaterial substance can be a real thing. But that just doesn't make sense. That doesn't communicate anything to me.
And Aristotle didn't come up with the word substance. It was translated into the English word substance, which started, I believe, around 1400 AD, meaning the thing that stands under something, the thing that supports it. Like if you have a chunk of gold, then there's a material that supports that chunk of gold, right? It's what it's composed of. And that the actual word that Aristotle used was hypokaimenon. And let's see, I'm not sure. It starts with hypo, under, and to stand. Those are Greek words. So it's sort of the same thing. It's the substrate of things, right? And we like to think about substances. But you get in a whole lot of philosophical problems when you start talking about substance and mereology and all of that. But anyway.
Right.
So
yeah.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just another way of saying if we look really close, what's really happening there? What's this stuff really made out of? And, so the gold has this molecular structure, and then that's made out of atoms, which are made out of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And then there's quarks, and we just go dig deeper and deeper. And the answer is we don't really know how deep that rabbit hole goes. We don't know what the most fundamental elements of our physical reality are. There's something happening there. that's about as much as we can say with confidence. And so this again, there's this substance of the gaps fallacy, where underneath all of it is magic, right? And just because he says so, and in the meantime, he supports that with, I'm pretty sure some other people said so too. Like, we should
Yeah.
give a shit that some other people said so too.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's just pulling this out of his ass, right? Okay, an immaterial substance that possesses consciousness, and of course, we haven't begun to talk about what that is, what the fuck we think consciousness is, and animates the body. Basically the motor cortex is what animates the body, but later on he says that it also forms the body. So he says something else really surprising later on. We'll get to it. Maybe not today. He says that he doesn't believe that you can have a soul without a brain, that the soul comes first, and then the soul and the brain come about at the same time in a fetus, right? Which means that he believes that abortion is okay for, I think, 6 weeks. I don't know if he believes that, if there's no soul there, right? But like, how the fuck does that work?
Right.
Just, I don't know. Anyway,
Who can explain the magic?
Yeah, but he just pulls soul out of his ass.
And we're going to focus on these two aspects of the definition, namely that's an immaterial substance and that it possesses consciousness. Now, because I know there's some non-believers watching, erroneously, I had people even stop me at this point and say, wait a minute, why are you saying immaterial substance? That's a contradiction in terms. No, actually, it's not. The first person to use the word and even coin the phrase substance was Aristotle. And he was actually talking about metaphysics, because without going into all the intricate details, the word substance comes from philosophy originally, and it means to stand under, to substance, and it is a thing that grounds properties of a thing. Again, without going into too many details, so for Aristotle, immaterial substance was one of the main things he was talking about. It wasn't until later we adapted the word substance and applied it to.
I don't know. Is that true? I know nothing about Aristotle.
Here's the wonderful thing: it still doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. I gotta share this. I'm echoing now though.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Why are you echoing? Are you
I
echoing?
don't know.
Are you both echoing? Does that mean I have to leave and
I
come
don't
back?
know.
I can't do that.
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
Resume.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay.
This used to happen with StreamYard.
Yeah, I know it happens with this too. Okay, are you echoing now?
Testing. 1,
Oh, I can't hear
2,
you. Okay.
3.
Let me see here.
I believe I am echoing.
Try now. See if you're echoing.
James, you do it now.
'Twas brillig and the slithy toad said gyre and gimble in the web.
Dang, you just always sound good. No, I don't think I'm
I don't do
echoing anymore. But let me
Yeah.
let me read this. I just found it's from faculty.washington.edu. It's a substance note, so apparently it's from some professor. Aristotle's notion of substance is crucial to his metaphysics, but it's complicated by the fact that he uses the term in several interrelated ways. The Greek noun that is usually translated substance is ousia, O-U-S-I-A, if we were going to transliterate it. Ousia, a form of the verb to be. So immaterial stuff is essentially, immaterial things that exist is kind of what what this really means here. So I don't know, that other word you used, we were discussing earlier. What was that? Speed?
That was hypokaimenon, I think. Hypokaimenon. And it's derived from the same thing you talked about, ousia.
Oh.
It means both substance and essence. And I believe it's a derivation Let's see, the Greek terms that best capture that notion are, they're two different terms, ousia and hypokaimenon.
Okay.
Hypokaimenon can mean concrete thing, the substratum and the subject. And ousia means substance or the essence. So,
yeah, so even hypokaimenon or whatever it is,
kaimenon.
Sounds like he's actually misapplying the word.
Yeah, but he just sort of appeals to Aristotle said it was immaterial, so therefore I don't have to explain how a substance.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, is all he's saying. But the word to me sounds once again incoherent, and once again, just because Aristotle used it doesn't mean he used it in a way that's clear or a way that that's coherent.
Right. And in Eric's defense, he is saying that he's using it in the sense of the essence of the thing. So the essence of a human being is the substance of the soul. Basically, that is the essence. And that's all. That's the word from that's ousia, like the essence of something, right? So anyway, that's how he's using it, and of course he isn't good. But he pulls it out of his ass. It's a problem. You can't pull soul out of your ass and use it to explain everything.
Are you suggesting there's some sophistry involved here?
Sophistry, yes, sophistry, or anal sophistry, pulling it out of your ass.
Ah,
anal sophistry. Yeah, that's worse.
Right.
That's worse. Okay.
So I looked it up in like a concordance. So Genesis 7:23 uses the term. There's King James. There's 12 different versions that use the word substance there. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle and creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. So it's if you look at the like what the Hebrew meaning of the word is. I want to come back over here. It just means living things, like the whole of the thing. And if you look up the concordance, you'll see that it's talking about that, the whole of the thing, not just the substrate of it, not just the essence or certain qualities of it, the whole damn thing, right? The substance, whatever it is, period.
Yeah. The whole of the thing. Yeah, that becomes pretty important. Yeah, in order to play videos now, I have to flick a switch. Otherwise, we're going to have that echo problem. And for some reason, it starts up somewhere in the middle of the stream when I'm playing videos. So it's going to get a little clunkier. But should I go back to the video? You want to go further?
Either way is fine. Either way is fine.
I would like to raise a question real quick. Oh, here we go again.
Yeah, okay. I turned it on for the video. You see, that's the problem. Now I turned it off. Now you're fine.
Okay. Well, when we're talking about the sum of the that kind of like the sum of the whole or the earlier. Gosh, I'm losing my vocabulary here. I keep becoming reminded of the German term Gestalt, which is the organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of the parts. Isn't that essentially what we're talking about here with the use of soul?
Yeah. Yeah, because you see, with the problem that we humans have is every now and then one of us dies or one of our other animals die. And they just lay there, and it's like something left them. And what left them is the spirit or their breath, right? They quit breathing because spirit originally comes from breath. So something went out of them, right? All of a sudden. And it's the nature of things dying, of living systems. Living systems are self-regenerative, and then they die and they quit regenerating. And then a bacteria comes along and says, "Hey, food," and eats them. It's like a human problem. Like if you've lost a loved one, I don't know if everybody does this, but for me, I always think, what the fuck, They were just here talking yesterday, and now they're not talking. And they were here thinking yesterday, now they're not thinking. I mean, you go over this in your head, and it doesn't make any intuitive sense, right? When somebody dies. but the body's still there. It's like, hey, they're still there. They're laying there. It's just not moving around so much anymore. They become much calmer. But it's a weird thing, and that's where all this shit comes from. That's where all this bad thinking comes from. So we don't understand this phenomena of the self-regenerating system of life suddenly breaking down and not working anymore.
Yeah,
And you
systemic failure.
Yeah, and you can see it microscopically. That what is that site that does microscopy? They're really good. The Cosmos, the microcosm, I think it is. They show these cells that are moving around. All of a sudden, a membrane breaks, and shit starts to ooze out of it. It still tries to move for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden, it's dead, and it just blows out all over the place. And you can see it microscopically, but when you look at a human being, of course, you can't see every neuron doing exactly that same thing. Because right at the moment of death, when the system breaks down, over the next 24 hours, all of the cells start to break apart and degenerate and stuff, and we don't see that. So intuitively, death is a real bitch for us, right? And that's why religion. That's why people think about souls, and that's where, I mean, if you imagine primitive man looking at, a loved one suddenly dying, I mean, what the fuck? They went through the same cognitive dissonance, and they had to explain it somehow. So we got to explain it. What went out of the person? Well, his spirit. He quit breathing. He quit in and out breathing, right? So his spirit left.
Right. It was a very physical thing. They understood the spirit was breath. So they thought of, God was, to them, God was a physical entity. This is one of the things that Christians miss. And this is explained in depth in Dr. Francesca Stavroukopoulos' book, God and Anatomy. And so this very physical,
awesome book.
So this very physical entity breathed the essence of his life force, breath, a physical thing, into the body that he'd made for Adam, and then Adam became a living soul, a living creature, right?
Yeah.
Soul wasn't some separate thing. It wasn't a magic thing. It's who you are. You're a living entity. You're a breathing entity, and that breath itself is what sustains your life. And the idea was that breath came from the source of all breath, right? And they believed that wind itself was a manifestation of this. So it was this ever-present power, this force that was always reminding them of God's presence. This was the idea in Genesis, where the Spirit of God flowed above the waters. It was wind. That's what it was, literally. It wasn't magic power, right? They didn't think that at all. This idea that what leaves this body is some other kind of soul is a later evolved notion that didn't exist when Bible writers were talking about it. And if these fundamentalists would just stop to do the research and quit dabbling in metaphysical philosophizing within the context of their narrative and actually go do the damn research, right? Then they would discover, oh shit, I've been working from a false premise. It doesn't matter how much you study a thing. If you don't understand the history of it, then you don't understand the thing. The concept, right? If you don't understand what those writers meant when they said a thing, then you can study that book for your entire life and you won't get any further because you'll keep recycling misunderstandings about what they were talking about.
Yeah, and Maya made a comment here, which is just what I was thinking about. Like in evolution, we look at other extant species to illuminate on one species A, we illuminate by looking at another extant species. Well, there's another extant species of religion which evolved in a separate geographical location, the East, right, Asia. And they took breath in an entirely different direction, and they kept the idea of breathing, and it's a practice in Buddhist meditation, and it's very present. So they keep the idea of breath and as the spirit, and it's interesting to contrast the two. So, but religions evolve. For Christianity has evolved since 1960, a lot. I mean, it has really changed, taken on a fundamentalist, Jesus-loving, fucking, very, very Jesus-focused compared to what it used to be. It used to be more God-focused, I think. in the first part of the 20th century. And after the hippies, for some reason, we got this born again Jesus thing. And that created an obsession with Jesus that I do not remember from my early days going to a Presbyterian church. I don't know what it was like in other churches. So just a theory.
It did morph. It did change, and it will change again and again and again for as long as it persists. It is, in effect, a mimetic virus that's spreading to human brain operating systems. There are social connections, and like any virus, it needs to mutate in order to survive. So if it enters a host mind, and it's going to die in that mind if the host rejects it, if they reject the ideas that it contains, then it will need to take on different meanings that are compatible with their existing mental infrastructure, their existing mind, in order to survive and be passed on to another person. Otherwise, they'll just say, "No, it's bullshit," right? And they're not going to pass it on to anybody. So, yeah, of course, it's going to continue to evolve. It's such a different thing than it was. If you look at the New Testament text about Jesus, Jesus went on and on and on about, "Hey, don't give me the credit, give the Father credit." Right? Everything I say, everything I do is because the Father said so. It's about glorifying His name over mine. It's not about my name. It's about glorifying His authority, recognizing and submitting to that. It was also only about Jews. He preached only about Judaism. He preached only to the Jews. He even told people, don't go to Gentiles, only go to Jews. This message is only for the Jews. That the entire law covenant will remain in effect for as long as the heaven and the earth even exist, right? He was just trying to, the character, no matter what was really said or done, the character was just trying to get people, the Jewish people, to adopt a different, softer, more progressive idea of the texts, where they weren't so brutal and they weren't so legalistic and they were more easygoing and cooperative and stuff like that, because he thought the end of the world was about to come and he wanted them to be ready for that new kingdom to be established on earth. And in order for them to be ready, they had to be acceptable to God. And in order to do that, they needed to stop being such assholes. This was it. This was the crux of his position. It was just a clarification of what he thought Judaism was already supposed to be, right? He wasn't trying to start a new religion and any of this other stuff. So it's just amazing how much Christians today get wrong about what those stories teach, about what they say Jesus was and who they say he was and what it says he taught. They've completely misunderstood everything about it. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, if you go to anybody, like a grammar teacher from the 4th grade, they'll tell you, yeah, you're reading this shit wrong. Here's how words work, right? This is the thing that frustrates the hell out of me when it comes to religious fundamentalists, is they forget how language works. They forget how words work. They forget how logic works conveniently every time they need to. End of rant.
So, Scott, the reason somebody pointed out that you're the one that echoes, and we're both on as basically owners of Restream Studio, right?
James echoed a bit too.
They said only you were echoing.
Now, who's this they? One person said it.
Nerdy Rodent, I think. I can't remember. Maybe.
Well, I who am I? I can't dispute Nerdy Rodent. He is.
Anyway,
is
the solution is
that is unassailable. But yeah, I recall experiencing James Apperson echoing as well. Perhaps Nerdy was out of the room, distracted and doing something else. But anyway,
you're questioning Nerdy Rodent's.
No, I would never do that because, like I said, his character is just too unassailable.
Impeccable.
Yes, impeccable. I would never say that Nerdy Rodent is wrong.
Okay. Anyway, okay. But I know the solution is just that it's a little cumbersome. So should we play a little more of the video?
Sure.
Oh, that means I got to go turn the thing on. I'm turning the thing on now, Scott. Okay.
Things like science, talk about physical things. But, we can get into more of that later if we'd like. Now, when it comes to talking about a case for the soul, I would say there's only really 2 basic points you need to present. And the first is that consciousness is not physical. And the second is that I am more than a brain and body. I am a soul. So let's look at this. Now, first of all, again, at this point, some people may say, well, how can we investigate this? And some may even say, how can we investigate this scientifically? And really, the problem with this is that this is what's called a category fallacy, because science, while a wonderful tool for studying the physical world, is a tool that is limited to only studying the physical world. And the soul, if it exists, is by definition a non-physical entity. So I like to put it this way: to ask for, quote, scientific evidence or investigation to try to look into the soul would be like trying to use a ruler to measure your weight. It is simply the wrong tool for the assessment. On top of that, imagine.
Okay, we got. Yeah, they always go to that, right? Like, we can't investigate supernatural phenomena because basically it's supernatural, right? So we can't use methodological naturalism to investigate it. That part is kind of correct. But the thing is, if the supernatural imposes itself upon the natural, that is the only way that it would make a difference to us. Otherwise, we wouldn't give a fuck, right? I mean, if there's a God or a soul and it does nothing at all to the natural world, then we wouldn't care. So it's not entirely true that you can't detect supernatural things happening. Because if I walked into my bathroom right now and space-time dissolved in my bathroom, I would fucking notice that. That would be supernatural, and I would notice it. If the laws of physics broke down in my bathroom and I walked in there, we'd know it, right?
So
Possibly.
I mean, possibly, you know, it could be the shrooms, but you know.
Oh, fuck you. Okay. Okay. I get so much of that around here lately. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Okay, should we move on a little bit?
We can, sure. And he's wrong, but we can just move on.
Okay, so he's making okay, he put up a thing that said consciousness is not physical. Okay, that's what the fuck the whole that's what is the burden of proof is on him to prove that it is not a physical phenomenon. So, okay.
In this, imagine that you have a friend of yours, and he comes to you and he says, "There's an invisible man in my house." And, you know, you being skeptical, you want to know, okay, I want to see if there's an invisible man in my house. And I'll stop sharing just for a second. And so you offer to investigate this claim for him. And you go to his house and you take a few hours to investigate. And then you come out and you're actually upset with him. And you say, I'm upset with you and I think you're lying. And he says, why would you think I'm lying? And you say, well, because I just spent 2 hours investigating this invisible man that you claim's in your house. And after 2 hours of searching, I never saw him anywhere. I looked under the closet. I looked under the bed. I looked in the closet. I looked in the bathroom. I looked everywhere. And not once did I ever visibly see this alleged invisible man. And of course, with a confused look in his face, he says, well, of course you didn't see him. He's invisible. Now,
okay, you got a lot of comments that we
I do.
missed.
There's just so much bullshit, so many layers of bullshit packed into that.
Right.
Just because you use the wrong measurements doesn't mean that that there aren't any right ways to detect.
Well,
something.
he's glossing over the whole thing. If this guy believes there's an invisible man in his house, he believes it because that invisible man interacted with him in some manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he couldn't see them, well, then maybe he heard him. Maybe he saw that he moved something. There's some reason other reasons your friend believes that your friend obviously thinks the man's invisible, so he didn't see him either, but he believes he's there for other reasons. He glosses over that part, right? And that's what I mean by the supernatural. When it intervenes on the physical world, there is a physical trace of that, right? If there is some supernatural goings on out there, we could find it, and we could, we'd find instances of it. And what they want to say is, oh, it's so rare, that all we have is a few anecdotes from people who've actually seen it. That's the situation with ghosts, right? Like Some people believe in ghosts because they absolutely believe they saw one, and none of us believe in ghosts because none of us have seen one. So, because they're so rare, ghosts are so rare. But anyway.
So Nerdy Rodent points out that how do you know if there's an invisible man or an invisible nerdy rodent in your fridge? Footprints in the butter.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you could use sound equipment. You could use sonar, or assuming, of course, that sound can bounce off of an invisible person.
Right.
You can use
and people have
displacement of air, but that's probably a little hard to measure. But the whole idea is there's some evidence there. There's some way to measure that, and just because Eric leaves out all the other possibilities doesn't mean that it's not detectable.
Oh my God!
Right.
I stapled my son to some plywood, so I forget.
Right. Christian reasoning. So, spread Hive Science says you could spread flour on the floor. You could do that.
Cornstarch works really well.
Or you could blow flour through the air and see it go around something.
But let's see, photons don't bounce off the ghost. But when the ghost puts his foot on some cornstarch, he displaces it with some of the same mechanisms that photons interfere with electrons, right? And so I don't understand why ghosts don't just get real with the vision, right? Because we're a visual animal. That's the one thing they seem to not do well is light. They can do everything else, but they can't do light very well. I don't get it.
Right. So, yeah, Bree says they replaced all their flooring with loose gravel. Though sand would work too to avoid invisible invaders. Even the rodent kind. So it's the thing, right? Like he's running a parallel to say, okay, if somebody comes to you with the claim that something invisible exists, then you shouldn't get mad at them when you go to look for it physically with your eyes and don't see it because they already told you it was invisible, right? But he's missing the part where the reasonable person asks more questions. They're like, what is it that makes you think there's an invisible man in your house? It is very much the same as asking somebody, what makes you think that there's a spirit magic being attached to your brain that does some of your thinking for you, right? At least on moral issues. What makes you think that, right? And the answer is nothing. Like, he's got an intuition, and some ancient people used some words he likes. Like, okay. Give us a way to investigate it, right? Don't just like throw a bunch of words around and appeal to authority and appeal to tradition and appeal to definitions of ancient peoples and say, "Oh, that proves it," because that doesn't prove dick, right? Like, what makes you think? What made the guy think there was an invisible man in this house? What made you think that you were an invisible spirit magic being? Hello.
Hi, Scott.
Hello, Scott.
What are you doing? What the fuck?
Doing okay, Scott?
Oh, I think it's a ghost.
I think he's talking to the invisible man in his house.
It's the ghost of Scott. I think maybe he's answering the phone or something, but I don't see him muted. So I don't know what's happening. What's happening? He's muted.
Right.
Oh, he said it. He answered the phone. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got you. Jesus called. Let him answer.
Yeah, and he just fucking threw us off. It's that easy to throw one of our streams off,
that
right?
Easy. That easy. I thought the invisible man showed up and wanted to go ahead and join the stream. I'm like, well, we should.
Sorry, dudes. I got a phone call, but yeah.
Yeah, we figured that out.
Yeah.
Ominous.
Jesus,
Hello.
Something touched me on the shoulder and I can't see it.
Right. And so I wrote about this, and I kind of want to get to the final point about it. Like, I got so much material here. I don't know how much you want me to cover, but
cover as much as you.
Yeah, like. cover the material, dude. You don't have to apologize for it, or and if it's a rant, that once again, that's why we have you here.
I appreciate that,
because when I fail to rant, we have you to rant.
Perfect. So when he mentioned substance, it's the thing that grounds the properties of a thing. The issue raised here is what causes a soul to have the properties that it has. And the problem with that is, one, this is just arbitrarily assuming that the magic soul self exists. Two, anyone creating a definition for a theoretical concept is actually not validating that concept by assigning a word to it. You can make up any concept and assign a word to it. That doesn't prove the concept true. Three, he's also assuming that he can identify the properties of a magic self soul. But then strangely, he never bothers to identify what those properties are. Like, he sets us up where he's going to tell us, and then he doesn't. Four, how can any literal thing that is made out of absolutely nothing, something he asserts himself, have any properties at all? Um, Five, established meanings of substance: physical matter, the gist of something, or drugs. Right? That's the established meanings of substance if you look them up in dictionaries, and including the etymology and the history of the word. There's one more definition for a substance, and yes, it's a theological expression. However, it's uniquely specific to the intentionally vague rhetoric of early Catholic Christians from when they drafted their creeds, and it refers to the hypostasis of Jesus. They did not, yeah, they did not extend those declarations to human souls. And I would argue that they used it as something physical, not magical. They seem to have understood that if something exists literally, then it must consist and subsist of something. In this case, it was a mysterious substance, but it was to them a literal substance. Now, to be fair, this doesn't really matter, pun intended. Even if the early Catholic Christians or anyone else had played around with words and concepts the same way Hernandez is, it's irrelevant. It's a fallacy, right? It's an appeal to authority, an appeal to tradition, an appeal to bandwagon. That's fine in a church, but it doesn't belong in these debates. He's just relying on these things anyways because he doesn't have anything else to build his case with, right? So in the meantime, there's just nothing we can do with this. The grounding of properties of a thing, and that he doesn't tell us what the properties are. And it's just, who in the hell cares? Right? There's just nothing that we can do anything with.
Quick question / comment.
Yeah.
If I may. I hate to interrupt your rant, but subject matter fits in here. Grounding of properties. Is that a necessary thing? When you talk about grounding,
right.
Again, what are you talking about? I understand grounding a circuit. I understand grounding maybe a building and a nice strong foundation, but to carry that over to other concepts, it seems a little reifying, making something seem as real as something physical without it actually needing to be as real as physical. So what is grounding, and do we really have to have it for properties?
Right.
Any help there?
It's just double speak rhetoric. That's all that it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's, the grounding of the properties of gold. The reason gold has the properties that it has is because of the atomic structure. That's the grounding of it.
Yeah, it's a physical. It's a physical emergence, from just the properties of atoms and molecules. And there's no Platonic ideal or whatever behind it. There's nothing out there with the perfect properties of goldness, of which gold is an imperfect copy or whatever. And I just the language here is misleading, and you can account for it in different ways, such as the properties that he thinks belong to a soul can actually be explained in terms of the systemic nature of our chemical processes.
Right.
Yeah, basically. This idea is the substance and the essence of presuppositionalism, that we have to ground things, and the way they ground them full stop in God. So they've chosen an arbitrary concept, and they say, oh, everything is grounded in God. So Therefore, I have grounding, but you don't, atheist, because you're going to talk to me about quantum fields and all that bullshit, right? But the actual, I mean, if you this like Moreland and this guy Eric get into the essence of, like, if you have two substances or two things that are identical, but they're in a different position in time and space, are they really identical? And what is the essence that carries across time or across space, right? And that's all resolved when you look at physicality as space-time with fields. It has varying fields across space and time. And that's what we know from physics, right? That's as grounded as you need to be. That's as grounded as we can be in physics. So everything involves where something is in space and time, and basically what the field it's doing. And that accounts for substances. And philosophers get so confused about this because they treat it linguistically rather than physically. And that's why I like scientism, because I start with everything as a space-time substance, right? Like a field in space-time. And things become much simpler. Like you got an electron here, and you got an electron 5 feet to the left of that electron. They're the same electron because the field is similar, but they're different electrons because they're in different spots in space and time. So, but for us, moving through time, we automatically think it's the same thing. Like if I move around the room, or if I move through time, I believe I am the same thing. But then that's just the human mind's way of apprehending that concept, that information, right? So I see that I am continuous because I'm kind of the same shaped thing, right? I move around in space and time. So
yeah,
it's that simple, though.
Right. So he's gonna proceed to say that if the soul exists, by definition, it's a non-physical entity. But he can define it any ways he wants. If he's saying, "Hey, I'm proposing the idea of a non-physical entity," he can say that, right? It doesn't matter how somebody else used the word. He can simply do that on his own, and that's how we should take this, regardless. And so, but here's the problem with that. And in response, I say, "Says who? According to who is a soul a non-physical entity, and why should we care? And if a soul is made out of some sort of energy, would that really disqualify it as a soul? I mean, what if you have a soul, whatever it is and whatever it does, and you create a version of it that's made out of something? Would that not be a soul? Like, why does it have to be non-physical in order to qualify as such? And what he's basically saying is that it's something that's made out of absolutely nothing, right? And here's the problem with that, obviously. If a soul and absolutely nothing are both made out of absolutely nothing, then what we're saying is that there are two different kinds of absolutely nothing, which is nonsensical if you think about it, that there's two different kinds of absolutely nothing. And yet, if you switch to saying that it can consist and subsist of some form of mysterious energy, then that is physical by definition. Those are your options. It's either made out of nothing, in which case, it's a different kind of nothing than nothing? Or it's made out of something. It consists and subsists of some form of energy, in which case, by definition, again, it's physical, right? Those are your fucking options. There is no third option on the table. And he's got to choose from these if he's going to have a coherent, rational discussion about any of this, but he tries to avoid it. So that's end of rant on that point. But it's a crucial point.
Yep. Oh, and he talks about category fallacies too, which is primarily what he does in all of his thinking. But he talks about it like I forget where he referred to it. 753. Anyway,
the one with the ruler, weighing something with a ruler.
Yeah. Okay. Category. Yeah, he likes category fallacies, but he doesn't seem to understand that he does the very same thing when he's trying to make consciousness something non-physical. But anyway, I'm getting tired, guys. Where now?
Well, we can stop it here if you want, and we can schedule a part 2.
Yeah. We could do that.
Works for me.
So where we're at is 9:14 in the video, and the video is 1 hour and 45 minutes long.
Wow.
And we haven't even gotten into a slideshow that much yet. We just dipped into a slideshow. So I think we're where we at here. Yeah, the 2 basic points. So that's the first slide, 728.
That's because we're all too damn opinionated.
Ooh, something horrible just happened. What happened? Oh no. My bookmarks all went away, so now we gotta stop.
I was going, he always says that when I talk.
What?
Something horrible's happening.
I gotta refresh this thing. Oh my god. Oh my, no, they're back. We're back. 728. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
we're at 9:14. So so we want to dig into this a little more, and we haven't even started talking about consciousness and properties and the confusing linguistic habits that philosophers get into when they can't understand the mind. So
right.
Anyway, shoot her in the head.
Yeah, we can shoot her in the head. So much more to say, but save it for next time. Love you guys.
Yeah, we'll have more work, more work to do on this. So, and
I love the way the side chat participated in the topic and made comments and clarifications and a few jokes.
Yeah, chat was brilliant today. Thank you guys so much for all that. Lots to think about and very spot on. Deconverted man. There was a lot.
There's a lot. Anyway, okay. So we gotta follow through with this, right? So we gotta do a part 2 like tomorrow or the next day.
Well, I've already done enough notes in that doc that we could fill up a part 2 pretty easy. So
we could fill a part 2 already.
Yeah.
So, okay, guys, we're shooting her in the head. Y'all ready?
We are ready.
Goodbye, cruel world.